Welcome to a new segment, LeaderLINK, linking members with mentors to learn, achieve, and succeed. I am Hunter Sparrow, and I have the pleasure of serving as your Northwest Region Vice President this year. Joining us today from the North Creek FBLA is Chapter President Pragya Rana, and today we are going to discuss chapter engagement and methods for increasing chapter growth. But before we start diving deep into that topic, Pragya, please tell us about yourself and why you joined FBLA.
Thank you, Hunter, for the phenomenal introduction. Hi, everyone. As Hunter said, I'm Pragya. I am currently the chapter president for North Creek High School, which is recognized to be the largest chapter in Washington State. Hunter, a reason that I joined FBLA was actually through a friend of mine who served as the national officer, Stithi. And I joined freshman year when it was completely online, and ever since then, it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride. Thank you so much for having me for your interview. I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you well. And it's really cool that you got linked together with Stithi there, and kind of that's how you got your start in FBLA. It's really cool. So we'll just dive deep into the first question. So what is your strategy for increasing membership as an officer of your chapter?
That's a great first question, given that we do have the largest chapter in Washington State. There isn't a particular strategy that we implemented in order to reach what last year was 252 members, and it's predicted to go even higher for the next membership year. However, reflecting on what we did in past years, I can connect that it was a combination of both strategy and luck. By that, I mean, when it comes to strategy, one thing that we did really well was brand FBLA at our school. We created hype videos or recap videos for nationals, and when new freshmen came in, they saw those videos and were inspired. Thought, wait, that's actually pretty cool. I think I want to do that. Our national winners for past years, we used them as highlights and have them either come to our member or chapter meetings to talk about FBLA, or just really highlight them to show our next membership just how robust our chapter is and what FBLA offers. And having that branding, if you do it consistently and in a smart way, can make a really, really big change. Additionally, once these strategies were implemented, as our seniors graduate, the freshmen that come in, oftentimes their siblings, their cousins, their friends, and they're like, wait, my brother or my sister did this. Of course I'm going to do this. So for a large portion of our membership, it's kind of just a rite of passage. Like, of course I'm going to do FBLA. So that's the more branding side of it. When I say luck, I mean, as I mentioned before, North Creek High School was the home to one of the national officers. And that's pretty big, having a national officer, as well as 2 different state officers. So having those members reach that level of recognition, what it does, it allows our other members to look up at them, be like, well, that's so cool. And that's also another attraction. And that's not something we control, but it is a portion of luck as well as marketing.
Yeah, that's really cool how North Creek has kind of grown to be like the powerhouse of West Central. It's kind of like really cool that you guys have developed like this kind of cycle of your chapter, and it's kind of like your membership has like constantly stayed strong throughout the years. And I think that's really cool that you guys continue to develop more and more as the years go on. So, continuing on to our next question, how do you get general members to help increase participation and membership in your chapter?
Yeah, I mean, us executive board officers, we're a member first before we are an officer. And different strategies that we've implemented actually to not only engage our membership, so there's 2 ways of engagement. One, there's like social bonding, there's community, there's making sure everyone's feeling included, but there's also competition prep. And at North Creek, we tried to target both areas. And how we do that is by utilizing our general membership. For example, the students that placed at nationals this past year, we had 13 individuals who took glass home. We're going to utilize them, and essentially for the next upcoming school year, every couple of weeks, we're going to have them attend one of our full chapter membership meetings and have them present what they did. When we open the floor to questions, so it's essentially like a workshop. We did this last year. We had 15 individuals who took glass home with 1 national champion. And the turnout was just phenomenal. I mean, we had one of our largest attendance for these types of workshops that we do. So that's focused on the competition prep area. That's one of the many, many things we do in order to make sure our membership stays engaged while utilizing our current membership. When it comes to community bonding, similarly, what we do is we host different fundraisers at local restaurants, Mod Pizza, Chipotle, whatever's available. And we invite all of our membership to come, and it's a great way to bond with your community while also making a profit out of it in terms of finances. So those are the two ways that we, two of the two ways that we implement in order to make sure that our membership stays engaged while utilizing our general membership.
Yeah, I really like how North Creek implements kind of like the national winners from the year prior into like their program of work to kind of get the members more engaged in competing. I feel like that's something that more chapters should kind of copy off you guys, and maybe that would make Washington FBLA stronger as a whole. So overall, how can chapters like yours or others help students who cannot afford SBLC or NLC? So how can we help raise money for those students who can't afford those events?
I'm going to be very brutally honest with you. With North Creek FBLA, it's important to recognize privilege. We are located in a very upper middle class area, and financial barriers are often, like, very rarely the reason why a student doesn't attend SBLC or NLC. However, I do want to answer that question to the best of my ability. I served as the VP of Finance, or the treasurer, I guess you can call it, last year before I was a chapter president. And what I learned was this year, we had 72 individuals qualify to go to an NLC. 68 of them went. What happened to the other 16? Why did they go? Well, 68, sorry, 72, yeah, math real quick. But what happened to the few individuals who didn't go? Well, I asked around, and none of the answers were financial barriers. It was, I'm a senior, I don't really want to go. I've won NLC, I don't really want to go, or have conflicting plans, I can't go. But it was never a financial barrier. However, it is important to recognize that for many schools, and I think that's why you're asking this question, finances is definitely a problem, especially for NLC. This year, it was over $2,000. What North Creek FBLA has actually attempted to do in the past is host a fundraiser through SnapRaise, which is a donations platform. Unlike your other fundraisers, it's not like you eat at a fast food restaurant and you get a third of the profit. You get about 80% of it. And you're not selling a merchandise. It's all purely donations. So it's quite easy to do. We were able to raise $11,000 through this. And for most regular sized chapters who probably don't even have 62 individuals, let alone 62 national qualifiers, that's plenty, right? That can pay off at least 5 members who are attending nationals. So there are different tips and strategies that we use to lower the costs, if not eliminate them completely, for our students. When it comes to SBLC, our school district actually pays quite a decent portion of it for all students in order to maintain an equitable balance. So we have that as well. But in general, what my advice would be for chapters that cannot, for chapters and as well as their members who cannot afford to go to these conferences, is to host regular fundraisers, and if possible, through SnapRaise as well.
Yeah. And so this kind of transitions into our next question. So do you as a chapter officer have any tips or suggestions for other teams on running a good fundraiser, whether that be through the program that you said or like any other kind of fundraisers? Like what does it take to run a good fundraiser, like on the promotion side of stuff?
Absolutely. And I have a really strong answer to this because last year that was my entire responsibility. I can go on about this for quite a bit, but I'm going to focus on one particular thing, which is branding. Nobody wants to do just a fundraiser. What's the point of this? Of course, you see the finance benefit of it, but more than that, how do you engage 250 members to participate in this fundraiser? So what we did was create like a story behind our main fundraiser. And it was, one, this requires you to really know your chapter membership. And remember, I said, you are a member before you're an executive board officer. And we found an individual who was kind of the class clown, I guess you can call him, or everybody likes this kid. He's the face of FBLA for our chapter. And we created like a video series of different like storylines with him. And we're like, you got to save him. And the only way to save him is through SnapRaise. It's still up. You can go to nchs.fbla, North Creek High School FBLA, and look at them. I mean, we had people from like Texas and Florida repost it on their stories and just say, I don't know who this chapter is, but this has got to be the funniest reel ever. So really creating a solid branding and a storyline for your chapter so that they stay engaged. Or like, oh, that's creative, that's fun. That's like my best advice because nobody wants to just donate money, right? But if you have a story to it, it can make a big difference. So that's one thing. A few other options that you can consider are like sponsorships through local businesses. I know that works for plenty of students, having smaller fundraisers, but having them consistently so that after a point it builds up. But yeah, those are my advice for
Perfect. That sounds amazing. I feel like that information I definitely will help a lot of chapter officer teams around the state. I think fundraisers are a big part of like how we can make money for SBLC and NLC, and I really think more chapters need to implement them more. And I feel like that information will definitely help them get started. So as a large chapter, as the largest chapter in Washington, how do you keep that many members engaged? Like usually a chapter is pretty small, but like we're all curious, how does North Creek, like you guys are so engaged in FBLA, like how do you keep that engagement as an officer team?
Yeah, I mean, I want to begin by saying that it's quite a blessing to have amazing chemistry with your executive board officers. I think that's the biggest thing. If your executive board works well together, if they're friends before they're officers, it makes a big difference. But in terms of keeping them engaged, like realistically, 252 members, our advisor can't check in with every single member. How's your event going? How's this going? Which actually, when I found out advisors do that, I'm like, wait, how? Oh, you have 5 members. Okay, that makes sense. But what we do to make sure our membership stays engaged is to have weekly meetings, membership meetings. These are not required, and these do not focus on like information, like sending out information. Our motto is if you can find it on a slide, we're not going to have a meeting about it. Because why can't I just say, hey, I can just look at the slides. Why attend this meeting? Right? So all the information we pass down, you can't find on a slide. This information might be fun games that we do during the beginning of the school year to like make sure our new members participate with our like returning members, or it could be competition prep resources that we advertise, or like I said, workshops for national winners. These things you really can't find on a slideshow. So that's one of the many ways we make sure that our membership stays engaged. One more thing that I want to highlight is we have what we call a pre-regional conference. So for regionals, Washington State only allows 6 teams per school per event. Now for most schools, that's not a barrier. At North Creek, I mean, we had events with over 20 different teams register. Not all 20 can attend regionals. So we had this mock competition where we first found the top 6 that would move on to regionals. And that event was just massive. And it was a huge membership engagement competition that we did for the first time last year, and we're going to do it again this year. So those are the 2 different ways that we make sure membership stays engaged.
Okay, perfect. And I think you answered this kind of 2-part question that we're going to have next in your answer for this. So our first question was, how often does your chapter meet? And I think you said weekly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a lot. That's a lot to plan as an officer team. Now, what is your strategy for communicating during those meetings? As you said earlier, if it doesn't fit on a slide, don't include it. So what are we doing in those meetings? Like you've mentioned games, like what other stuff can an officer team do to implement that strategy?
Absolutely. So for our Thursday, it happens every Thursday. We call it Thursday Times. And for our Thursday meetings, essentially we break it down into 2 categories. One is more fun, social bonding meetings, and the other is more competition preparation meetings. We have 2 different executive board officers that plan the 2 different types of meetings. So one VP handles one, the other VP handles the other. And we typically alternate every other week. Sometimes like we might do competition more than once, and the other way around as well. But there's a lot that we do here. But one advice that if you want to take from here would be to make sure whatever you do is engaging. And I don't mean just like a game, not necessarily. Like I guess handing out information, sometimes that's quite boring. Okay, scan this QR code. Okay, this data is on this. Okay, whatever. Find a way to make that engaging. Our turnout, it's never actually 252. That's quite impossible to get, but we keep these like open-ended, so you don't have to come. You can find like if it's essential information, it's always on a document. We never actually publicize it or have a meeting for it. But if it's like fun activities, like we have games that are related to FBLA events, like we had one for like a Shark Tank, which is essentially a sales pitch, sales presentation. So we have those, or we had one for we're going to have one for a rubric game, because oftentimes like rubrics are misread. Okay, how do you improve that? So the fun activities that we have are always geared towards like a particular FBLA skill. So that's a big thing. when it comes to competition, like I said, workshops of like past winners, but also like other like objective test resources that we find. So I guess our meetings they're all over the place, but the two main ideas that we focus on are fun and then competition.
All right, that sounds amazing. And I feel like definitely for chapter meetings, I feel like that the fun part of it and the engaging part of it is really important, because I personally would not want to sit through just a boring informational chapter meeting. I'd rather do something fun and really get into the FBLA mood. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So during those, how as an officer team do you plan those meetings? So what's an agenda for your chapter meetings look like? And just like how as an officer team do you sit down and do you plan that agenda ahead of time?
Like I said, two different executive board officers, they handle 90% of the work, which is awesome. And then a couple days before our meeting, we'll just see, okay, what resources do we need? Are the slides ready? If there are any in-person materials, if that's ready, but that's all, we just make sure that's all finalized. But kind of diving deeper into, okay, what exactly are you planning? Typically what we do is, okay, what's the idea? What do we want this focused on? We want a big takeaway. We just don't want to have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. It has to be some sort of essential skill that you're getting. First, you identify that. Then you have to figure out if you're going to communicate it in like a fun way or a competition preparation way, whichever is more suitable, most professional. After that, it's just really building like the slides. But keep in mind, these slides are like, at most, they're going to have 5 words. It's typically pictures or like follow this person that goes here, but it's very, very minimal. And then it's just freestyle. we don't have a solid script to it. We're all really good like professional speakers, and so we just leave it at that.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important for officers who are planning meetings to understand that like you don't need a script. Like you can definitely like go in and be yourself and kind of just run those meetings like the way you're comfortable. And so going into this next question, as we all know, as we've talked about before, North Creek is massive with over 200 members. So how do you keep the members engaged who didn't qualify to go to SBLC or NLC?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is something that even North Creek is still trying to figure out. But one thing that we actually do is we've noticed that there's a pretty big drop from SBLC to NLC, bigger than regionals to SBLC, which makes sense. So for the students who unfortunately do not qualify, they can still participate in like our fundraisers that we have at restaurants and still stay engaged in that. But other than that, we try to advertise like leadership positions, so state office, national office, or even national councils. So if you're like, these are the small like leadership positions that they offer, or even the bigger ones, unfortunately, if you weren't successful in your competitive event, that doesn't mean your FBLA journey is over. There's still a lot for you to do. Not just that, if that's not something someone's interested in, then we even offer just like supporting your friends or individuals who are going to nationals, or who are going to SBLC, by staying connected with the live stream or just supporting them in different ways, whatever way possible. But yeah, if you have any tips, do let us know. We're always open to new ideas. But that's something that is quite difficult to ensure your membership stays engaged even after they don't qualify.
Yeah, I love that you guys promote like the leadership positions. I feel like that's something that a lot of chapters don't do exactly of kind of promoting them. I love that you're promoting the national councils and the national programs, but also I love that you're promoting that they can support their friends. Like, I feel like that's something that people are like, oh, I'm here to like compete, but you also can just go and if you don't qualify for NLC, like the live stream's always there. I feel like people don't understand that there's a live stream for NLC, but it's a big thing and they can definitely tune in. So lastly, yeah. Lastly, for like our fun question, just to get to know you guys a little bit more for our people who are watching, if you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
If I could be any animal that I could be, would be a jaguar, because North Creek Jaguars, of course, go North Creek High School.
Nice. Yes, go North Creek got Jaguars. You heard it here first. So anyway, this is our wonderful Pragya Rana. If you have any questions about anything chapter related, feel free to reach out to her. So we'll see you next time on LeaderLINK. Make sure to follow at WAFBLA on Instagram to stay connected on all of our segments. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Hunter.